Well, while we shiver in the midst of the English winter weather, some of us have been very fortunate enough to head down to the Southern Hemisphere. And one of those people is a good old friend of mine who is making a very welcome return to 98, no doubt. So, uh, greetings, or should I say, buena vidito, al Johnny Barran.
Darren, hello. Yes, very well. Lovely to be back on. Actually, I do love the pod. Love the radio show as well. But it's yeah, one of the go-to listens actually. Especially as I think people are very candid with you, which is great. You really
Yeah.
you actually get more meat out of people than I think any other platform. People just tell you kind of how it is, which I love. No, really enjoyed the pod.
Yeah, well, I think it's true because I just try and make it conversational, and because I'm not representing a media giant or I don't have any
Yeah.
agenda, and say it quietly, I generally don't know what I'm talking about. Um, I think people generally seem to feel quite relaxed, and yeah, it's I did a very amusing conversation with Bumble the other day,
Yes. Yes. Very good.
which started off very seriously and then descended into complete farce. I think Brian Rick's West End play would have been very proud of how we how that conversation went. But great to have you back. And every time we catch up, you're somewhere exotic. And I think the last time we talked, you were in Nepal, Kathmandu, which looked fantastic. I mean, the scenery and the backdrops were just amazing. Although the traveling around was a bit hairy from what I remember.
Yeah, yes. I think I'm trying to think. Yeah, I've been to Nepal a couple of times actually. It's an amazing place to go. And yeah, quite dramatic. The way to get around Nepal, actually, to be honest, is that roads are a little bit of a journey, but so literally you fly everywhere. That their bus services, if you like, operated by all the local airlines. So but if you don't get a flight and you end up on a bus, it can take you a while. But that was, yeah, going to Barawa from memory a couple of years back. But I've been back since then, been to Biratnagar, which is another part of the country for another event there. But yeah, beautiful part of the world.
Thought you were going to say elephant for a minute.
No, you can get around by elephant. You can by cable car. Yeah, just about. Yeah, by there are several modes of transport out there. That's for
Yeah,
sure.
I remember after one of your trips, not long after, there was quite a serious accident where a plane went down,
Yeah.
and I think it was on one of the routes that you've been flying, and dare I say, might even be one of the planes that you'd been traveling on.
Yeah, it possibly was. Yeah, I mean, there's no doubt that there are crashes in, as you can imagine. You can imagine a bus crash over here. It's the same kind of equivalent, but with far greater and far more catastrophic circumstances over in Nepal. And yeah, every time one of those happens, it does affect many communities very deeply. And it's yeah, it's unfortunately there are risks associated with air travel in that neck of the woods.
So coming up to date,
Mm.
you've been in South America, in Argentina, uh, doing a bit of work down there. I mean, I can't imagine how hard it is your life sometimes to jet off to these places, but it's well, if you don't follow Johnny on social media, I suggest you strongly do because he's very good at video diaries and just keeping you up to date with what he's doing. And so you've been down in Argentina covering the ICC Americas qualifiers, is that right?
Yeah, I've been lucky. I've worked for the ICC TV over and Crit Clubs and IMG who put the packages together and put the events together and put the broadcast together over the last couple of seasons, which is incredible because you get to see the process of how all basically the entire pyramid of the ICC pyramid goes about trying to get to the next World Cup in India in 2026. And it's incredible. And these qualifiers, if you like, there were over 40 qualifiers or 40 countries start out in Europe alone. That gives you an idea of the scale of this. And every region has a qualifying process. And I was out in Argentina for the Americas qualifier, and 9 sides qualified for that. And essentially everybody plays each other once. It was a little bit like the World Cup back in 1991. I think there were 9 sides, were there, in the 91-92 World Cup in Australia. But yeah, everybody plays 8 games, and then the top 3 out of the top 3 out of the 9 sides go through to the next round of qualifying, and they meet Canada, and they go into a group of death, and then the winner of that tournament will go on to the next World Cup in 2026 in India. The USA, who are also part of that group, they're already there because of their incredible performances in the last World Cup. But it's a really, really incredibly competitive region, as you might imagine, with cricket links that go back almost longer than Test match cricket. It's incredible. The cricket footprint in South America is very long established.
Yeah, and one of the things I was going to touch on was the fact that in a lot of these places, and you see some of the European countries where you might raise a quizzical eyebrow about that they play cricket really, and a lot of it is based on expats that have sort of moved abroad. I mean, I lived in France for a while, and there was the Meudon Cricket Club in Paris, which was full of basically Englishmen that were working there, but it had gone back a long way. But Argentina has got quite a rich history of not just cricket, but I mean, pretty much most European sports. Obviously, the football we know about, rugby, they're very, very good, and polo, of course. And one of the venues that you were at was the Hurlingham Club in Buenos Aires, which is a very famous polo venue.
Yeah, incredible place. The Hurlingham opened in 1888, was named after the Hurlingham in London, in West London. They both clubs have reciprocal membership. It's incredible. They have cucumber sandwiches at 4:00. The first thing you see when you walk in is a picture of Queen Victoria, and the second thing you see is a picture of our dear late Queen Elizabeth as well. I mean, it is one of the most Anglified place you can imagine. I mean, Argentina is very Anglified in a large sense of the word, but despite our differences over the Malvinas, which is very, very the Malvinas or the Falklands, if you like, which is very, very present when you go there. Originally back in sort of the 1880s, there were over 40,000 Brits Brits living in Buenos Aires, and people are very strongly proud of their English heritage. There's a lot of Irish and Scottish expat communities as well, going way back as well. I mean, it's an incredible melting pot, if you like. Buenos Aires especially is the most Anglified, and 4 very established clubs in Buenos Aires. There's the Hurlingham, as you mentioned. There's the Belgrano, which is the centre of town, which is an incredible club, and that goes back to a similar era. You have St George's, based at a very popular, very English-orientated school in Buenos Aires, and you have St Albans as well. But yeah, very incredible cricket footprint in Argentina, and actually, cricket was played 24 years before the first football was ever kicked in the country. So it gives you an idea about the heritage there. But very much a lot of the South American sides very home produced with rich cricket cultures, and Brazil actually is one of the most incredible stories as well, because they've had a sort of they missed out on qualifying, but they've come from a standing start to winning their first 2 games in the competition, and ICC wins as well, which is incredible for them. And Brazil women, of course, we know a lot about them. They're ranked 32 in the world, and punching well above their weight with a great opportunity of qualifying for their global competitions coming up. But a really incredible place, Argentina, with an extraordinary cricket heritage, and with an extraordinary Anglo-Argentinian heritage as well.
Yeah, it is a fascinating story, and well worth doing a bit of reading up on for our listeners. There's
a good book, Darren. It's called. It's written by Timothy Abraham and James Coyne, of course, editor of The Cricketer. It's called Evita Burned Down Our Pavilion, and it's a history of a cricket odyssey through Latin America, and it's a history of cricket in Latin America. And it was for me, as you can probably imagine, an incredible Bible to have out there, which gives you a history. I mean, it goes through the sides that Lord Hawke led to Argentina in 1896, other incredible MCC sides led by the likes of sort of Plum Warner in 1926 and 1930. Almost, potentially, it would have become a Test match nation in 1930 30. The only problem is it sat outside of the Commonwealth. That's what prevented it from becoming a Test match back then. So those are the rules by the International Cricket Council, as was back in the 30s. But the most incredible history of cricket in the region, but which is and in Argentina itself is it's a massive sport. It's not nothing, or in Buenos Aires, it's a very big sport. I mean, it's not nothing like compared to rugby. I mean, the Pumas are one of the great sides in world rugby. They're incredible. Their record against the likes of New Zealand are to behold. But it is a really big game in Buenos Aires, especially.
You also mentioned a couple of names that, if you're of a certain age, might stir the memories. You mentioned Belgrano, and of course there was that famous battleship, the General Belgrano, which was one of the most infamous episodes, the sinking of the Belgrano in the Falklands conflict, and this long-running dispute, which goes far deeper. I was reading about the history of the coal industry, and from sort of Victorian times, and the importance of the Falkland Islands then. So when people are trying to understand these things and trying to get a grasp of the rights and the wrongs of that territory, I mean, it a bit like what you're saying about with sport and sort of the Commonwealth links, whatever. All of it goes back. There's a lot of history to this region, and it's not quite at the face value that you might take it.
Yeah, there is an extraordinary history, and an extraordinary history of a different, shall we say, of opinions over the Malvinas. Incredible strategic location from a British point of view, huge mineral and oil resource in the fields around there, and has been a bone of contention since time began. And I mean, if you only have to look at, I think the Hurlingham Club, funny enough, the Hurlingham Club's response because actually being an Anglo-Argentine, as you can imagine, in the years of certainly in 1982, was a very uncomfortable experience. The Hurlingham responded by taking down the picture of Queen Elizabeth over that period. But it's quite a sort of it's quite an extraordinary scenario, because on the one hand you have a nation or a region, if you like, that's quite proud of their English heritage roots, and yet you have the elephant in the room is the Malvinas, and it's referred to significantly. There's quite a significant war memorial in Buenos Aires, and it is a large part of our recent history. It's one of our biggest recent conflicts that we've had, and it will continue to be a problem, I think, politically, in terms of just because of the standpoint that both the British and Argentine governments have. But as ever, sport transcends politics, and there we were in these incredible venues that were largely set up by British expats playing this extraordinary competition, which leads to qualification for the next World Cup in India in 26.
Now, how was the standard of cricket? It's a bit hit and miss, some of the stuff you see around the world, but I saw some of the video clips you put up on Facebook, and there were some half-decent performances. Some of the bowling figures look pretty good.
I mean, I think if you to give it context, Bermuda missed out on the last World Cup, going to the last World Cup by net run rate. So it gives you an idea of how close it is. Bermuda and Canada, if you like, are the next stage of the Americas. Got the USA who are far in front, with a very major cricket footprint as yet. At present. And then below that, if you like, you've got Bermuda and Canada, who are the two strongest. You couldn't separate them on points for the last World Cup qualifying. The only way you could separate them was via net run rate. So it gives you an idea of how close this region is. And just below that, you've got the Cayman Islands, who are also very, very strong, and you have the Bahamas, if you like. And those are the three. So Bermuda, the Bahamas, and the Caymans went through to the next round of qualifying. They'll join Canada, and I would imagine Bermuda and Canada will go toe to toe, and that will be a really, really tight affair to see who goes through to the next World Cup. So it's not without. It could easily have happened that last time Bermuda, who were in this competition and who won this particular leg of the competition, could have gone to the last World Cup. So, but everybody is capable of taking points off each other. I mean, the standout story for me, which I I love sort of, I was very lucky to watch the majority of their games, and obviously being in Argentina was watching Argentina, who missed out, you know, very, they had a must-win game against Cayman Islands. That was their penultimate game. If they'd won that, their destiny would have been in their own hands. They would have gone through more likely they beaten Brazil on the final day, and they would have gone through to the next round of qualifying. So it was very heartbreaking, actually, because you're in Argentina, you're eating a lot of steak, you're with their amazing hospitality, going to these extraordinary venues, and you see this homegrown side who've learnt the game in Argentina from Argentine coaches, and to see them miss out was heartbreaking. And they were such a lovely, charming bunch. But one of the great stories, Hernan Fennell, I think, became only the second player to take a double hat trick in international T20s, which he did with 4 and 4 balls against the Cayman Islands, which, Cayman Islands are a good side. The majority of them have first class experience, have all played good cricket around the world, are really established. And he took 4 and 4 balls. Amazing performance by him. So you have a lot of these performances. Pedro Barran was the captain, which people remarked, the two Barrans chatting again at the post-match. But he was the captain of the Argentine side, a real talent. And, there's a lot of talent there. And, I think on the one hand, you've got these stories of quite established nations. And on the other side, you've got the likes, and you've got other sides like Belize very strong. You've got Suriname, who are a bit of a wild card, but they sit on the border, of course, of Guyana. A lot of people pop over, and there's quite a few people of Guyanese descent in that Suriname side. Well, it's a really good side. They only won 1 game in the competition, but very dangerous. And then Brazil was an amazing story, because where Surrey have a big partnership with Brazil, they've invested quite heavily in the cricket centre out in Rio, and Brazil's journey was incredible. They won 2 games. They beat Suriname, they beat Panama, and all their cricket, if you like, starts in the projects. If you like, it starts in the communities. It's completely homegrown. They have a couple of wily old expats who helped them along their way, but they won, massive for them to win 2 games, and suddenly you win games in these competitions. And it has massive effect on how the funding is operated from an ICC point of view. You're more attractive to the IOC, which is a massiss factor here. Now it's an Olympic sport. You almost double your opportunity of how you can get revenue into the game. And it was a terrific first major tournament for them to win games, and that helps on their ranking. So every time a side wins in these competitions, your ranking is affected massively, because what happened back in 2018-19 is that anybody that plays international T20 all your stats are considered alongside, South Africa, England, and everybody else. The only thing is that those games have to take place in an ICC environment, if you like, for them to count, for you to, to get your stats on Cricinfo, if you like. So really that these official tournaments and these pathway events are so important for sides in South America.
So, what's the upshot of this latest this round of games that you've been covering? What is the next stage for the ICC Americas?
Yeah, the next stage will take place in September 2025. They haven't decided on a venue yet. Obviously, we just finished that round of qualifying, and the 3 sides have gone through: Bermuda, who won, and then the Caymans and the Bahamas, actually, who Bahamas did really well, and they were possibly a side that might have been vulnerable to Argentina. They're currently ranked, to give you an idea, they're ranked 72 in the world. Oh. And, for them to get through to this round of qualifying is an incredible achievement for them. So so Bermuda, the Cayman Islands, Bahamas go on to the next round of qualifying, which is alongside Canada. And the winner of that group of death will go to the big dance in India in 2026.
And it's great. I mean, people that sort of poo-poo some of these smaller cricketing nations just want to have a look back at, even the last T20 World Cup, which was a fantastic occasion. And we did see some of the smaller, lesser known countries. Oman springs to mind, but Kenya are always sort of in the mix and regularly get to these ICC global events. And it's really good. And I think they always seem to throw up a surprise package.
Yeah, I think, sadly, and I'm not really quite sure as to why, but Kenya have dropped away considerably. Considering they were
Yeah, they
semi-finalists in
were.
the
Yeah, they
2006
were. Yeah.
World Cup, knocking. India was knocked out in that. India and Pakistan, from memory, went out in the group stages, which was fairly catastrophic for the
Yeah.
ICC. But they got to the semi-finals. Kenya, without doubt, have actually dropped away, and actually some of the nations that benefited in that particular region who've done really well, the likes of Rwanda and other sides, have actually benefited by, again, similar scenarios have happened where refugees have ended up in Kenya, have learnt the game, have gone back and have grown the game accordingly, not dissimilar to the Pakistan and Afghanistan model. So cricket's still quite prevalent in Kenya, but they're not the powerhouse they used to be. The sides to watch out for, the likes of Nepal, that we touched on already, they've just had we're currently in the middle of the Nepal Premier League out there, which is, it sounds a lot of fun, but they've had 500,000 people go to this event live across the last month. 20,000 people a day. Every single ticket is sold out. The likes of sort of Martin Guptill over there, Ravi Bopara, all the old favorite, Darren Goff doing the commentary on Star Sports. But Nepal are, going to become a real seat at the table, and alongside the USA, which is already one of the starting to point, one of the biggest cricket economies in the globe because of the wealth of the people that play the game in America, and they do, the strong expat links they have to the likes of India and Pakistan and the Caribbean for that measure. So, yeah, I think you'll find that associate cricket could never be stronger, and some of the European cricket that's being played, helped by the European Cricket League, which isn't an ICC competition, but you see a lot of the footage, all the way through the year on social platforms. But the European qualifying, I did the European leg of that tournament out in Germany, which again another country that's going well, and so we're in the European qualifying. That final round of qualifying will happen in September as well. So you're getting through all these regional qualifiers, sub-regional qualifiers, and what you'll end up with is the last round of qualifying, which will happen all in 2025, to see who's going to go to the World Cup in 2026. But the associates, largely, by the time when they do get to you think of the journey that they've gone on to get to a World Cup, perform very admirably. I mean, Nepal could easily have won all 3 games and have got through to the Super 8s as well in the last tournament. So, yeah, it's really, associate cricket is amazing. And you look at the likes of the Netherlands and Scotland, they routinely beat full member countries with the same funding as everybody, without full member funding. Ireland gets 70 million as an example at the kind of bottom end of the full member status, and Scotland and Netherlands barely get a beam between them, so they have to share the money from the other associate pool. So it's incredible what some of the high-end associates do, and how well they do, performing in these world tournaments time in, time out.
And there's also great interest from on television audiences for these expat communities that want to see cricket being played in where they are, and they tune in their millions, don't they?
Yeah, the cricket market in USA is huge. It's always been big, but often it's expats looking to be interested in how Pakistan and India are faring. That tends to be the model. What you've had recently, though, is this emergence of USA cricket becoming a force, having a franchise league that dwarfs, as an example, the 100. The 100 didn't have Pat Cummins or Travis Head, I can assure you of that. But Major League did. People turned a few eyebrows when Jason Roy played in this thing a couple of years ago. But this thing is way bigger than the ECP could ever get near. It's really funny, and there's a lot of demand for cricket in the region. The Caymans had a T10 competition again with more internationals than got anywhere near the 100 last year. You'd be amazed at how enthusiastic and how many people are willing to invest in the game outside of the full member countries.
It is embarrassing, isn't it, for the ECB that, having invented the wonderful T20 format, but didn't really monetize it, and then all of a sudden they had the ball robbed from them by the BCCI, who then developed the IPL, and then we know the rest is history there. And again, with the 100, the similar sort of thing seems to be, it's history repeating itself, because the ECB are inventing something that really no one's interested in, and they're running up against absolute monstrous investment and competition from elsewhere in the world.
Yeah, I mean, I think with the 100, I think the ECB had very little choice but to produce a product, because there was a very great danger that they would end up with no product and nothing. If players end up being contracted by franchises rather than getting central contracts, the reality is that there is no commercial value to anything that's set up historically. I love the county championship. The county setup is incredibly valuable, but nobody's interested in Leicester Northants on a TV station anywhere else other than over here in the UK. And that was the reality. They needed a model that could try and compete, and it really that will probably become their key revenue source over time. Whether that would be a T20, a hybrid, or whether the 100, they were faced. They had little choice. If they hadn't have come up with the 100, I think there'd be some serious question, because they would have missed the boat completely. And at the moment, you can just see the problems you have with tying people down. Now you've got these multi-year contracts, and I'm not sure they work, but they've got little choice, because otherwise players will be contracted to some of the other major Indian players. And the problem with franchises is, all the players in this country have been developed via the county system. The incredible time and effort that's gone through by those 18 counties to develop the players. And franchises just cream off the top. They just take the premier players. There's no real money for development. The model is changing in India. I do a lot of the state leagues in India. I've worked pretty much all across the country and for most of the broadcasters over there. And actually, you can see the state leagues, which have almost become like the counties over in the UK, and they go a long way, those leagues, to developing players, largely purely for 2020. Whereas the county system is incredible, but it is a difficult thing to sustain. So I can see what the ECB was trying to achieve. The problem is there's so many conflicts of interest between a game that's governed by 18 or 19 votes in the ECB system, if you like, and then you've got this hybrid franchise model, which goes against the entire principles of the game. It's a nightmare scenario to navigate, and Richard Gould and Richard Thompson do their level best. Bear in mind, of course, they hated the idea in the first place. Poachers come goalkeepers, really.
Yeah, that's right. But it's a bit like it's quite easy to shout from the sidelines, but then when you're given the big chair, things are a little bit different. Anyway, but so listen, just to wrap up, always great to see you, and I'm assuming I will be seeing a lot more of you in 2025. It's the Taverners 75th anniversary. Lots going on. I'm involved in planning one or two things, which I can't reveal yet, but it will all come out in the wash very, very soon. But it's a big year for the Tabs.
Yeah, it is, and it's the most incredible organisation. I'm very humbled to be asked to play and contribute in some way. But it is incredible, and the money that's been raised across those 75 years, and the essence is still the same: trying to raise money for really pertinent and important grassroots causes, and causes that extend the reaches of the game, which most of us spend a lot of time sort of trying to say, well, taking the game outside its kind of fairly cozy circles, which is what the Taverners do, and the programs that go into that, and also what they do for less able and disability cricket. It is quite incredible, and I think it's a really incredible organisation. The president is David Gower, who is a brilliant president, very active, goes to every single event, and there's a lady Taverners as well. It's a wonderful organisation, and it's been a privilege to be a part of. And 75 years next year is incredible.
Yeah, and I would urge anyone that's even interested. It is a very, very worthwhile charity, and it's fantastic to see the opportunities it gives youngsters who are underprivileged for whatever reasons, financially, physically, whatever, but to see the look of pure joy and pleasure on their faces when they're taking part in things like wickets or table cricket or the super ones. If you want to join the Taverners, it's lordstaverners.org is the website. And be part of something that's really, really good. And you can get to meet me and Johnny in person.
Well, no real value on my side, Darren, but yes, you'll have them queuing for selfies. Absolutely.
All right, Johnny, brilliant to catch up. And
Listen.
so what's next? What's next for you on the world of cricket?
Good question. I think it's likely to be a busy year for me. When we go through the next round, so the region, we go into the regional qualifiers from an ICC point of view. I think there's a fair bit of cricket opportunity there. I think I'll spend a good chunk of the summer, hopefully, in India as well, which will be great fun. Yes, we'll be back at the Oval doing the T20s, Voice of God, which I've done for so many years. Hopefully, I get invited back, which I love. I love. My association with Surrey. It's such a privilege still to be involved in the club in some way. But I'll be there hopefully for the 2020s this summer. But yeah, actually, after doing 36 games in 18 days, 2 games a day with just 2 commentators on each day. I mean, look, I know the county guys do more than that, but it's it's hard work. I'm looking forward to a little bit of break from our lovely game, and hopefully enjoying some turkey and some decent red wine.
Well, absolutely right. Absolutely right. Johnny, great to catch up. Always great to chat. And I look forward to seeing you very, very soon. Thank you for joining me on 98 Not Out.
Can't wait. Thanks, Darren.